folk myths, all from different religions, such as, for example, Dhul-Qarnayn, a character found in the Quran that corresponds to Alexander the Great, and legends that people told about him. What about the people of the cave, for example? People who went into a cave and slept there for a few hundred years. The information found in the Quran about them is not even very clear, but this is a folk tale taken from Christians, things that they told to each other. These things made it into the Quran because people asked Muhammad about these things. He had no answer. He went away, probably got those answers from somebody, and then told people about these things. And they were then included in the Quran.
When Apostate Prophet and his boyfriend David Wood aren't busy jerking each other off, they're busy making nonsensical videos about Islam and plagiarizing or decades-old refuted arguments or in polemics against Islam. So let me just quickly refute this this question or this point that Apostate Prophet mentions, where he says that the Quran copies previous stories. Well, the very quick response to this, since I'm trying to make this video as short as possible, is Apostate Prophet is committing a fallacy. He's committing the genetic fallacy in the post-Hargo hoc fallacy. What is the genetic fallacy? The genetic fallacy is attacking the source of the claim instead of the claim itself. It's a fallacy. The post-Hargo hoc fallacy is a fallacy that states the thing before caused the thing after. So these are fallacious arguments, or these are fallacies that Apostate Prophet is committing. So the whole point is that yes, the Quran does contain stories from Jewish and Christian apocryphal sources. That's true. I'm not denying that. But the problem with Apostate Prophet's argument is he's committing the genetic fallacy. Yes, there are true stories found in the Jewish and Christian apocryphal sources. How do we know this? We know this because even the New Testament itself quotes from these Old Testament apocryphal sources. We have quotations from 2 Peter and the book of Jude in the New Testament, which quote from 1 Enoch. 1 Enoch is not in the Old Testament canon we have today. And there are many other examples. For example, 1 Corinthians quotes from, the wisdom of Solomon. What else? Hebrews quotes from, the wisdom of Solomon. Again, these are not books found in the Old Testament canon we have today. Even in the Old Testament mentions books that are not found in the Old Testament canon we have today. So the whole point is that the defense Christian apologists make for this is that the New Testament are these apocryphal sources do contain truth in them. And when the New Testament books like 2 Peter, Jude, 1 Corinthians, etc., quote or repeat stories found in these apocryphal sources, there are true stories in those sources, and the authors of the New Testament are confirming that there are true stories in those sources. Same deal, or same with the Quran. When the Quran is repeating these stories found in these apocryphal sources, the Quran is confirming that there are true stories found in these apocryphal sources. So this whole thing with Alexander the Great building the wall, it comes from Josephus. Josephus was a Jewish historian writing in the 1st century. He confirms that Alexander the Great did build a wall against the people of Gog and Magog. And again, Josephus was a 1st century Jew living shortly after the time of Jesus. There is a historical core to the 7 sleepers of Ephesus and Alexander building the wall, because there are historical sites. It's called the Gates of Alexander, and the cave of the 7 sleepers has been found. Was a church, back in the 3rd or 4th century, and they found the cave of the 7 sleepers of Ephesus. So if the story is fictional, why is there an entire cave, or why is there an entire church or a tomb in Turkey that celebrates or honors the seven sleepers? That means that story there is a historical core to that story. You can just look it up. If you Google Seven Sleepers of Esopus Cave or whatever, you can find, pictures of that cave or that church that has their bodies or their tombs or their graves. And the Gates of Alexander, just type it up in I don't know, Google, and you'll see that there are historical sites claiming to be the Gates of Alexander. But again, what I'm saying, my point is that, the whole story of, Alexander building the wall against Gog and Magog and the seven sleepers does have a historical core in them. And it's true that these stories predate Islam. They came before, Muhammad was born. The Alexander building the wall came in the 1st century, was first written in the 1st century by Josephus. The seven sleepers of Esopus was mentioned by Jacob of Saru in the 4th and mid 4th century, 450 CE. And it came from a Greek source that's scholars think it came from a Greek source that's not actually lost. So there is a historical core to those stories. And the Quran is confirming that there are true stories found in, these ancient writings, these writings from Josephus and these writings from Jacob of Saru. And the Quran is confirming that these are true stories. Same thing with the New Testament. The New Testament quotes from, not only does the New Testament quote from apocryphal sources, but the New Testament, or 2 Peter, quotes from Josephus. The New Testament, or the Acts of the Apostles in the New Testament, quotes from pagan poets, etc., etc. So the defense Christian apologists make for this is that there are true sayings and stories found in Josephus, these Old Testament apocryphal sources, and these pagan poets, or these pagan writers, and the authors of Acts, 2 Peter, Hebrews, etc., is repeating or copying that information because it's true. There are true stories, and there's true information found in those apocryphal sources, or in the writings of Josephus and those pagan poets, etc. Same thing with the Quran. The Quran is confirming that there are true stories found in Josephus's writings, Jacob of Saru's writings, where the seven sleepers story comes from. There are true stories found in these Old Testament apocryphal books and stories, and the Quran is confirming that, and the Quran is repeating those stories, to confirm their historical veracity, or to confirm that there is truth in those sources. So that's the whole point. The whole point is that, apostate prophet is very, very ignorant, and he's very, apostate prophet doesn't understand logic and reasoning. He's committing the fallacy called the genetic fallacy and the post-hargo hoc fallacy, and he's ignorant about the New Testament, or in the Bible itself, because both the Old Testament and New Testament quote from these apocryphal sources in the writings of Josephus and pagan sources. And the Old Testament does mention books like Acts of Solomon, the book of the Wars of the Lord, in some lost Psalms of David, etc. So not everything made it into the Old Testament canon. There's a lot of material, or there's a lot of books that didn't make it into the Old Testament canon. So there are true stories and sayings about, the prophets of old, or the Old Testament prophets, that didn't make it into the Old Testament canon we have today, but made it into these Old Testament apocryphal sources, as even Christian scholars themselves admit. So not everything made it into the Old Testament canon. not every true story made it into the Old Testament canon. Some of the stuff got filtered into the Old Testament apocryphal traditions, as even the Old Testament canon states that there are some missing books in the Bible. So this is just my whole brief refutation of the Quran containing stories from before. It's a fallacious argument. It's called the genetic fallacy, and that argument backfires against the Bible, because the New Testament itself quotes from these apocryphal, these Old Testament apocryphal sources in the writings of Josephus. See the commentaries on 2 Peter and the commentary in the Christian commentaries on the Book of Jude, Acts of the Apostles, etc., and you'll see those direct references. I'm trying to make this video as short as possible, so I can't really go into the specific details in the specific explanations. So this is just my brief refutation of this point. Stay tuned. More videos coming up ahead.